Good evening. Welcome in to State of the Tigers, our weekly show here on PowerMizzou.com, brought to you by James Carlton, our friend at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. James wants to take care of all your insurance needs, whatever it might be, home, auto, anything else you need. Get in touch with James and his team. You can find them online at carltoninsurance.net. You can give him a call at 314-961-4800. James should be off the golf course this week. It's 127 degrees everywhere in Missouri. So he or someone on his team will be in the office to answer your call during regular business hours. Give them a ring, or like I said, find them online. Get in touch with James. He's been a good friend to this show and will be throughout this football and basketball season. But look, it is about football season. We bring in Jarod Hamilton. We were just talking in our extensive pre-show meeting. 4 weeks from today, Jarod will be in, this sounds really weird, in Dallas, Texas for SEC Media Days. Eli Drinkwitz talking on Tuesday, July 16th, I believe is the date. Our entire audience is wishing away the offseason, Jarod. Long enough? Did you get enough of a break? You ready? You going to be ready to go here for 2024?
Okay, well, I'm always ready to go, but it just feels like I was saying, there's just enough to keep you in distance. Like, can't go too far away because something may happen. Whether that started with the coordinators early in the year, that feels like forever ago. Then it was the ADs. Spring football, got the portal, we got the draft. I went to the draft, and now we're getting to the part where, we're talking about other teams and stuff like that in the SEC. But I mean, we only fill in a little bit of time. It felt like last year, it felt like we was trying to fill up a couple months worth of time, and now it's like, maybe a couple weeks, and then
changing the recruiting calendar has really condensed the offseason, but also college football has now completely become the NFL, where it's look, people want to talk about this 12 months a year. So even in the dead times, you're finding stuff to talk about and write about and all that, which is, ultimately it's a good thing. I think my headphones just died, so I'm going to switch to my other ones while I talk here. But offseason is indeed coming to an end, and that means SEC football is very, and I don't know what, Jarod, I have said a few times, I think this is going to be the most exciting college football season I've ever seen, because new teams and new conferences, 12 teams in the playoff. Like in the past, by November 1st, you were talking about 8 to 10 fan bases that really had a chance. I mean, I know Missouri fans were engaged last year because, they had this season they hadn't had in a long time. But as far as actually having a chance to win something, we've been talking about 8 to 10 teams. November 1st this year, you could be looking at 30, 35, 40 teams that legitimately think they have a chance to win it.
I don't know about 30. I don't know if I could go that far.
But I mean, November 1st, with 3 or 4 weeks left in the season, I think you're going to find 35 teams that mathematically are going, hey, if things fall our way, we're in the playoff. And that's all. I'm not talking about can you win 4 games once you're in the playoff. I'm just talking about getting it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an exciting season. Like you're saying, there's so much to start the year. I would think every fan of each team thinks, oh man, we have a chance, because everybody started 0-0. Even whatever team you're thinking about that is like not that good.
But that's never really been true.
No, exactly. But that kind of hope only lasts until the first game is played or until the first loss. Now you're thinking fans, you can go a few weeks into the season. A loss here doesn't cripple, your team's hopes or whatever. And kind of how you're saying, like last year, Missouri fans were just happy basically about having a really good season, getting into a name brand bowl like the Cotton Bowl. In a way, it's really good, but it's still, for being honest, it's still a consolation though, because every team wants to go to the playoff and the national championship. Now, when you extend that out, and there's so much more that's involved, like getting that bye or hosting a first round game, in addition to these, bowl games that are in place for, I think, the semifinals and stuff like that. There's so much excitement for so much longer, I guess.
Yeah, and hey, should have done this at the beginning. Want to invite you guys comments, questions as we go along. Throw them up in the queue, and we will certainly throw them on the screen and get to them. So this is kind of our just broad SEC football episode. We're just gonna throw a few things out about the conference, talk about them, talk about some individual teams, whatever. And look, we're not going to pretend to know the other 15 teams rosters like we do Missouri's and know who's gone and who's back and all that. I'm going to be honest, we're not to that point in the year yet. But so just big picture, Jarod, I don't care, team, player, game, storyline, whatever. Give me something about SEC football that you want to see, that you're looking forward to this year. What just something that you go into the season saying, man, this will be fun to follow.
Texas and Oklahoma for me, particularly Texas, because they were in the playoff and stuff like that. So I just want to see how do you fare when you move into the SEC. I'm excited to kind of see what, a team like Georgia. I just want to know how much vengeance Kirby Smart is coming with after, the team was it 6 actually? I keep thinking 5th in my head, but that was Florida State. I think they
were 6 going into the bowl games. I don't know what they ended up.
Yeah, so the fact that they were 6 going into that bowl game and they definitely could have been in that top 4, that's something. And then Ole Miss, I'm interested in Ole Miss just because I feel like in a way they're in a similar position that Missouri is in, as far as I can't remember where they finished last year. Maybe 12.
They went into the bowl games 1 spot below Missouri. I know that.
Okay. I know they were one of the top 12 teams or whatever going into what did they play? The Peach Bowl? They played Penn State.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, so I feel like just because they're in a similar situation as Missouri, that's when I'm kind of eyeing as I feel like a lot of people would kind of put them in the same category anyway, as far as they're probably towards the top of the league, but they're not the cream of the crop per se yet. So let's see what they do.
Yeah, got to go prove it. I'm with you on the OU Texas, especially Texas. Look, Texas was, right there, could have played for the national title last year. So if they come in, and let's say they go 9-3 in the SEC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that SEC arrogance is just going to be so loud. People are going to be saying, "See, you're just in that tissue paper league. That's why you played in the playoff. You can't come here and play with the big boys in this league." You're going to hear a lot of that if Texas doesn't go win 11 games this year. So that's fun to watch. The Oklahoma part, to me, I want to see if Missouri, Oklahoma, becomes an actual thing that the fan bases at large are fired up about, or if this is. I said on a podcast last week, right now, it kind of seems like a Twitter rivalry to me. The fans online are mad at each other and hate each other, right? But that's not really representative of the real world. OU fans, look, I've been around OU fans my entire life, and rightfully so. They don't really think of Missouri, right? The all-time series is something like 82-20 or something like that. I don't know the exact count, but it's not close. And so, but hey, rightfully, if you're an Oklahoma fan, your rival was Nebraska. A few years, it was Colorado. Then, obviously, it's been Texas for a long time. But Missouri hasn't been that team. Well, there's been some off-season stuff, right, to kind of stoke the fires. But I still feel like that's mostly an online thing, mostly a Twitter, a message board. It's a rivalry between people that are talking about college football in May, but it's not yet a real thing on the field. So I'm going to be interested.
I got a question for you, possibly two. One, so you and I were recently talking about fan bases and which ones are kind of the worst. And so it just made me think about when Missouri faced Tennessee, which is it's a fan base. It's a pretty big fan base. And Drink said, what did he say? We're standing on business, Josh.
And on business, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I don't feel like that was particularly I can't think of, from my experience, I don't know, you probably correct me, why that would be necessarily a rivalry. I'm not even going to call it a rivalry, but why that's a thing. Yeah. Considering the all-season stuff that's happened with Oklahoma, though, even though it's a lot about Twitter and stuff, there is still things that Missouri, in a way, is doing to Oklahoma that could make it a beef. Like Williams and Airy, something obviously both teams wanted. Missouri won. Caden Green, something both teams wanted. Missouri won. That is still a thing, even though the Twitter fan bases are making a big deal of it. So, do you think it kind of can be a petty thing like that where it becomes a rivalry again in that sense?
I think so. And look, this isn't Bob Stoops or Barry Switzer. Like Brent Venables is pretty new. OU's picking up and coming to this new league. And it's the team that Missouri has the most history with, right? They played Oklahoma 90 some odd times. Like there's nobody else in the league they've played more than about 20 times, I don't think. So there is history there, and there are fans, whether they're my age and remember, the Norman Conquest and Barry coming in here and embarrassing Missouri every year, or going back to the 50s, 60s, whatever it is. There's definitely some history there, and you do need history. Now, obviously, kind of like we've talked Missouri, Arkansas, both teams have to win for it to be a rivalry, right? And the Tennessee thing, that's real easy to know where that came from. That came from Josh Heupel scoring 198 points on Missouri in about 6 quarters the previous 2 years, right? Eli wasn't a fan, and if he had a chance, he was going to get some back, and he had that chance.
They definitely did run up the score. I do. Okay, so I said
I think there should be more of that though. Like,
you went out for a second. But why you fix every question? Well, I have a second question as far as the Oklahoma thing. That 9-team SEC conference thing. That's still something like they're trying to the pre-permanent rivals or whatever. Would Oklahoma be one of?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. It would be. And no, but I was saying, running up the score. No, just be better, man. Like I watched so many Oklahoma and Nebraska teams walk in here and score touchdowns with their third stringers in the second quarter. Like that's Missouri's fault. That's not anybody else's. So I didn't have a problem with Heupel scoring 66, and I didn't have a problem with Eli scoring however many he scored and make a little statement in midfield. Like that's fun to me. Great, man. We can't sit here and ask for people to be more fun and talk, and then complain when they be more fun and talk.
Well, I think, I completely agree with you. I think it's real soft when people say that, they're running up the score and they should take knees and they should take shot clock violations and stuff like that in the game. Like, no, it's 48 minutes. If we're talking about basketball, it's 60 minutes. When we're talking about football.
I watched the game. I can't even remember who they were playing, but Missouri was up like 49-7 or something, right? And it was like a low-level team. And Gary Pinkel didn't like to score 50 on people. So they got inside the 10-yard line and took a knee. I said, no, that's way more insulting to me, because that's actually telling the other team, look, if we try, we know we're going to score. So we're just going to do you the favor of not even trying.
I'm going to tell you why that one probably doesn't linger as long, is because for fans or whoever wants to go back and check the stats, though, if a team puts up 50 on you, it says something about their day. Like that may sting the other team for that day. Like, they could have did us dirty if they wanted to and they chose not to. But if I'm a young fan and I go and I see Missouri did this to such and such team and they put 50 on them, I'm thinking like, dang, my team, like they getting beat down on. That's what people, that's what people are gonna look at. So I kind of get it, but I'm not a fan of that.
All right, so you may have kind of answered this one in the first part, but what's the team that, like the specific season that you're most interested in watching unfold? I've actually got 2. I want to see Alabama. Like, is this still, like, Kalen DeBoer had it, one of the 2 to 5 best teams in the country last year at Washington, right? So you don't got some nobody coming in here to replace Nick Saban. Guys won everywhere. So does Jalen Milroe take a step? Can he, like, what if Bama is actually still Bama while we're all sitting here going, hey, I don't think this is quite Bama. Flip side, is this the year you might have a chance to get Bama? Like, that to me is the most interesting team in the SEC.
I think 2 things can be true. Is this probably the year to get Bama? Probably. But at the same time, I'm not a person who's like, oh, well, it's not Nick Saban. It's a guy who's probably lost like 8 times his entire career.
Ever.
And it's just coming off a national championship appearance. I'm not going to be the guy that says, well, yeah, you're going from GOAT to an elite coach, and that's just too much of a drop-off. I'm taking Bama as they're going to be one of those top teams. And because you don't even have to be a fan of the SEC or have a team in the SEC to kind of monitor Bama, because they're obviously one of the premier teams in college football. So for me, it's not just because I know I'm going to have, like, it's going to be in my face. It's still going to be Ole Miss in Texas for me, because that means I'm going to have to look for Ole Miss in particular. I'm going to have to look for those games, and I'm going to have to look and see how they're doing, because people are the same way they're feeling about Missouri, same way they're feeling about Ole Miss. Texas, again, that's just that nuance of you had a really great season. I don't know when's the last time they've had a season like that. And now you're coming into the SEC where, like you said, what are y'all going to do now that y'all are where, basically people thinking the big boys play at? So what are y'all going to do now?
All right. So I'll get to my other team that I'm interested to see in a minute, but let's just do this real quick. I'm going to read off Alabama's schedule, and I want you to tell me how many losable games they have. Not necessarily that they're going to lose them all, because they're not going to lose them all, obviously, but how many losable games they are. So Western Kentucky at home, that is not losable. South Florida at home, not losable. At Wisconsin, is that losable?
Nope.
See, I think it's losable. I don't think they'll lose it, but I think it is losable. Georgia at home, absolutely losable. Vanderbilt and Nashville, they ain't losing that. South Carolina and Tuscaloosa, is that losable?
Okay, here's what I want to say. It after Vanderbilt, no disrespect to Vanderbilt, but we're gonna be honest. After Vanderbilt, I can really say there's any SEC game is losable. I hate to be that guy, but I really could make an argument that any SEC game is losable. So that's why when you said, what was the first team? Wisconsin?
Wisconsin.
Yeah, I guess it's
in
losable.
Madison.
But I can't put it in my mind to formulate seeing that.
So I think there's a different level, right? Like South Carolina at home. Sure, there are worlds where Alabama could lose that game, but it's extremely unlikely. So here's the losable games on their schedule to me: Wisconsin, Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn. That's 6 games. Look, I don't think Alabama's going 0-6 in those games.
That's 7.
But I don't think they're going 6.
Got Wisconsin, Georgia, Tennessee.
You're right. It's 7. It's 7. I can't count. Yeah. So look, they're not going 0-7 in those games, but I don't think they're going 7-0 either.
Okay. If Bama
goes 4-3 in those games and misses the playoff, that's like a nightmare at Tuscaloosa.
Oh no, that absolutely is a nightmare. I feel like it's 5-2 at worst. It's hard. Because let's think about, so that Auburn game that's in Tuscaloosa, the Missouri game's in Tuscaloosa. What else? Georgia game's in Tuscaloosa. So they've got 3 good ones I feel like
they go to Norman, they go to Knoxville, they go to Baton Rouge.
Okay, and you think 4-3 is going to happen, or you just give an example?
No, I'm just saying, what if it does? It's possible.
Well, their fans are gonna be calling for someone to get replaced.
So they're gonna be calling Nick Saban, go back down the hall, man. We can't do this stuff. This 9-3, this ain't gonna stand.
I'm sure they'll even say we'll make sure they change the NIL rules back. We'll do whatever we need.
Right. So my other team that there's a wide range of what they could be. I am fascinated to see what Texas A&M is this year. Because look, Texas A&M, they recruit talent. I mean, you can't argue. They land dudes, right? And I mean, Jimbo Fisher just got fired for being he was fine there. He was pretty much 8-4 every year. I don't know what his career record was, but he wasn't awful. He just underachieved considering the amount of talent that they had and what Texas A&M thinks they should be. like Mike Elko is a grown-up football coach. I'm not saying that he was, if things had gone sideways last year at Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz had finished 5-7 and Missouri had decided we can't do this anymore, Mike Elko was number one on my hot one. He was going to be the top name that I put out there that, look, Missouri should call this guy and make him say no. So I think he knows what he's doing. Now, does he know what he's doing quick enough to get that thing where Texas A&M fans think it should be in year one? Probably not, but I'll tell you this. I don't think A&M's a playoff team, but I think A&M prevents somebody from making the playoff this year.
That's a good one. Also, I would like I feel like part of Texas A&M's thing the last, however many years they've been in the SEC, 11, 12 years or whatever, is Texas isn't here. Now Texas is here. And so now it's just as much as like, what are they doing down the street and how can we hold them off, especially them coming from off a playoff appearance. And now they're coming in hot with all this stuff going on. Like, that's another thing for them. But you're right. I do think they're a team that could stop someone from making the playoffs in that week 5. I think it's week 5 or
it's Missouri's 5th game.
Yeah, so that 5th game, that's a big time game. That is a big time game.
Huge. And so but like you said earlier, like Missouri can lose that game, and the beauty of it is, hey, you're not mailing it in. It's not over. Like you could still go make the playoff after that. Like I was talking to a friend earlier today. 2008, Missouri starts 6-0. They're in the top 5 in the country. Oklahoma State comes in here and beats them 28-23. And it was just like, well, season's done. We got nothing left to play for. They went to Texas the next week and got absolutely blown off field. You go to College Station and lose the first Saturday in October, your season's not over. You still got stuff to play for. So that's the beauty of it. So talking about that Texas A&M thing got me thinking of, and I had not warned you this was coming, so I'm going to go first and let you look at the schedule while I give my answer. If you, like, it's not your job, you're not working on Saturdays. You are told, here is money. You could buy tickets to one SEC football game this year. I will tell you where I'm at. Without question, I'm in College Station, Texas on November 30th when the University of Texas makes its return to Texas A&M. Bar none, that is the game I'm going to above all else. That is, I think it's Georgia Tech is called, the rivalry is called clean old-fashioned hate. Just take the clean out of it. That night in College Station is going to be pure old-fashioned hate. Like, there are going to need to be police escorts at Kyle Field that night for a whole bunch of people. Because A&M is so pissed off Texas is in this league.
I know they thought they did.
They thought they got away.
They thought they got away. They thought they one-upped. And you just think about it, like, even dating back to the Johnny Manziel and Mike Evan days, like, even though they didn't win a chip, they were thinking, like, okay, this is our chance. And all this time has passed. Now Texas has got a national championship appearance. NIL is, different, and everybody basically can use the same rules. And now Texas can say, not only are we Texas, but we're Texas in the SEC. Oh,
what if Texas comes in and clinches an SEC title game bid and a playoff spot on Texas A&M's home field? I mean, that is basically all this stuff you've said for 12 years. No, we came in here and we did this year one. A&M fans will be on, like, look, I can't. They will be on self-harm watch that night if that happens.
Yes. I will say, you were talking about, just picking a game.
Yeah.
A pretty good game that I feel like I would want to watch is, let me see where I'm at. It is Texas versus, I just lost it. Texas versus Georgia in Austin on October 19th.
That'd be good.
That sounds pretty good. It's not hatred or nothing, but you got, 2 big time teams around the playoff last year. I figure both of them probably are in the playoff this year. I just like big time football, but if we just talking about people hating each other, I like your answer.
Yeah. All right. So let's do this before we go overrated, underrated. One of the things I said we want to do, predict the SEC title game. And remember, no divisions this year, guys. It's just 12-0, 12-0, or 12-0, 11-1, whatever. You ain't getting there if you're not 11-1, right? 10-2 is not getting you to the SEC title game. It's not going to be the top. That's not going to be good enough to be second place and win a tiebreaker in all likelihood. So I will give you my SEC title game, and I looked at all the schedules to do this, and people are going to say this is stupid. Georgia, LSU in the SEC title. And here's why I'm going to say that. Here's LSU's SEC schedule. They got South Carolina on the road. They're going to win that game. They got Ole Miss in Baton Rouge. Look, guys, I'm just going to tell you, Ole Miss doesn't win in Baton Rouge. Like, they haven't beaten LSU much at all. Like, I understand what this season for Ole Miss is. I don't think Ole Miss goes to Baton Rouge and wins at night. At Arkansas, they're winning that game. At A&M. Okay, now that's where we talked about A&M could keep somebody out of the playoff, or A&M could keep LSU out of the title game. Then Alabama comes to LSU. That's one of those that I think, hey, if it was at the other place, I think I'd pick Alabama. LSU gets up for that. I think they can win that. Florida and Gainesville, I think they could get Billy Napier fired. Vanderbilt and Baton Rouge, don't even talk about it. And then Oklahoma and Baton Rouge, I think LSU might go into that game undefeated in the SEC and may not even have to win it to make the SEC title game. But if they do have to win it, I think they could win that game and make the SEC title game. And the reason I didn't pick Texas to get there, I think Texas loses. I think Georgia goes into Austin and makes a statement for the old guard of the SEC and beats Texas. I think that keeps Texas out. Alabama, we've already talked about. I think they lose a couple. Missouri, I've got them losing at Alabama and maybe one more. Ole Miss, I've got losing at LSU. So I don't think many people will pick LSU, but looking at the schedules, I like Georgia, LSU in the title.
See, my first thought was Georgia, Texas, but something I didn't peep when I was looking at Texas, that like when I just said I would like to go see Texas, Georgia, is week 2 in Ann Arbor for Texas at Michigan.
Yeah, but that ain't going to matter for the SEC title game.
I know, but it's just still, I don't know. Wait. But
I'm not talking about the playoff. I'm just talking about the SEC championship game. So, like, Texas can lose by 100 to Michigan, and that's not affecting the SEC title.
I was just thinking, you just said 10-2. Like, that's not.
Oh, I got you.
Right. We're talking about. Then if that's the case, yeah, if we're going that, I still think Georgia, Texas, and my thing is Missouri. Like,
so
Alabama is the only game where I'm just like, for right now, I'm thinking I'm just going to mark that as a loss. I've got them 10-2 in my head because of Oklahoma to be safe, but I really think they can beat Oklahoma. I think Alabama is that challenge.
So then it would come down to, and look, I don't even know how they do all these tiebreakers, but it would come down to 11-1 Texas or 7-1 Texas and 7-1 Missouri, and the tiebreaker gets into the SEC title game to face Georgia.
Yes, my problem with LSU, again, I'm not going to act like I know much about LSU, but losing Daniels, Thomas, and Neighbors, that sounds painful. I don't know. I don't know what's.
I am probably guilty of what Sports Illustrated always used to be guilty of like, find something that nobody's saying is going to happen and say it happens so that you look like a genius. Let's be honest, LSU probably not making the SEC title, but I can see Georgia, LSU in the title game because I like the schedule LSU has.
No, I get that. And I also think, though, and I'm not as down on Alabama as you are. And you're not even really down. Like 9-3 is the worst they can be.
I think they're going to lose 2 or 3 games.
Did you tell which 3, 2 or 3?
So I think they're going to lose to Georgia at home. I think they're going to lose to LSU in Baton Rouge, and I think somebody else gets them, maybe. But I think they lose at least those 2, and then you got Tennessee and Knoxville, Oklahoma and Norman. Like, the schedule makers did not protect Alabama in this thing. That's not an easy schedule.
Yes, and I get that. But I also think, kind of to what you just said, you just picked LSU. You picked LSU. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm not hip to LSU and what they've got going on right now yet. So
no, me either. I'm doing this like this is just throwing darts at a wall, man.
But okay,
nobody's listening. Nobody's going to remind me of this, right?
Oh yeah, okay.
Look, we can do 6 more podcasts before
episode 41. Here for you, Gabe.
Look, we'll be up to like episode 51 by the time these games actually start. I might pick 4 other teams to make the SEC title game between now and then.
That's fair. But we both agree that Georgia is gonna be there probably.
That's how this goes. So here's an interesting question. I believe this is Jinja Ninja asks, is 11-2 better than 11-1? Meaning, if you are 11-1,
you missed
do you want to win a tiebreaker and get in the SEC title game and risk losing it? Or do you just want to go, I'm good. We'll sit here at home and we'll let somebody go lose that game. And look, I think it's actually better. If you are 11-1, if Missouri, we'll just use Missouri. Missouri finishes the regular season 11-1, they're going to the playoff, right? Save me that trip to the title game. I don't need to go lose to Georgia and give voters a chance to knock me down a few spots. I'll stay at home, let Texas or LSU or whoever else is 11-1 go there, take that loss, and then see what happens. Now, I understand people that say, hey, man, I want to win an SEC title. I understand people that say if you make the SEC title game, you're getting in. But look, there's going to be because remember, it's not about getting in the top 12. First of all, it's about getting in the top 11. Because one spot is reserved for the G5 team. And then what if something happens like, I don't know, 10-2 Michigan beats 12-0 Ohio State in the Big Ten title game? Well, they're both in. They just stole a spot. So now you got to be in the top 10. And then what if, 12-0 Kansas State loses to 9-3 Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game? Well, there's another spot. Now you got to be in the top 9. So I have seen these conference title games do so much damage, including to Missouri. In 2007, if there is no Big 12 championship game, Missouri is playing as the number 1 team in the country in the national title. But they had to go play that Big 12 title game against Oklahoma. And they lost it, and they got all the way knocked down out of the BCS. So, and I understand it was a little more political then. But I'm just saying, if the SEC's got, say, a 12-0 team and 3 11-1 teams, I don't want to be the one that wins that tiebreaker. I want to be one of the ones sitting home.
Oof, it's so messy. It's so messy. I probably want to be on the outside looking in because, to be honest, winning the SEC championship, I mean, I guess that would guarantee you it feels like you're playing for a bye or you're possibly playing for your playoff life, and that is a
right. Like if you win, you're in the top 4 and you get a bye. If you lose, what if you slip from 9 to 11?
You could be seriously effed.
Right.
So
what it really comes down to is what is more valuable, the chance to win an SEC championship. And look, I cannot overstate how huge that would be for Missouri. Or let's say at 11-1, you're probably in the top 8, right? So you're not winning the SEC title, but you're 5, 6, 7, or 8. You are hosting a playoff game. If I, in the regular season, after that Arkansas game, if you tell me there is going to be a college football playoff game at Faurot Field, I say, don't play another game. Just I don't want to be in the SEC title game.
Absolutely. I agree with you. It's just not enough benefit to winning the SEC title. It was already kind of somewhat, you can pick holes in it, prior to this year. But now, you're talking about all that hard work. Because think about it like this. We're saying all this for the 11-2 season they just had for Missouri. They've got so much, stuff going on. You go 11-2 next year, and it feels like 11-2 would get you, usually it gets you to where you want to be. That probably may not be the case if you do that this year. And now I can see it 11-2 in some ways feeling like being 9-3 and missing it. Because it's just like you've done all this work, and now you were forced to play in something that was made to be good. It's not that good.
If an 11-2 SEC team misses the college football playoff, first of all, Greg Sankey will rewrite the rules, and second of all, that team will have 0 players show up for whatever bowl game it gets sent to.
Oh yeah.
Like not one guy on the team will play, and they shouldn't. So we'll go back league wide here in a minute, but K.E. Zoo asked, I think, a relevant question, and I think people are going to not initially give this as much credence as they should. Are you concerned that people saying Mizzou's schedule is easy and that might hurt them for the playoff if they finish 10-2? So let me paint 10-2 is going to include, we'll say, a loss at Alabama, right? Like if they lose twice, one of them's probably at Alabama. So Missouri's other games, and I don't care, just pick whoever you think is better of these teams. Texas A&M, Oklahoma, I don't know, throw Auburn in there for giggles. Whichever one of those teams you think is going to be the best. Let's say Missouri loses that game, right? So they've got a loss to Alabama and a loss to, for argument's sake, Oklahoma. Well, now you're talking your best win is Texas A&M. And then you're talking Auburn, South Carolina, Vandy, Arkansas. So last year, Missouri was 10-2, and they were ranked 8th in the country, but they were above a couple other. A 10-2 team would have gotten left out of the playoff last year. Probably would have been Oklahoma. One of the reasons Missouri was above all those other teams is their 2 losses were really good losses in LSU and Georgia, and they were competitive. But the other thing is they had that win over Tennessee, right? They had beaten a top 20-ish team.
Yeah, they were 13.
They had that win over Kansas State, another top 20, 25-ish team. That's not on the schedule this year. Beating Boston College ain't that, right? So look, I will just tell you, if Mizzou is 10-2 in the regular season, they might still get in. But there's going to be some nervous nights, and it's going to be like the college basketball team that lost in their conference tournament a day earlier than they wanted to, right? Like Power 5 team that kind of sitting on that 8, 9, 10 line, and you lose a game before you want to lose. And then all of a sudden you're watching, the Conference USA or the Big West title game going, please God, let the favorite win this because we can't afford a bid storm, right? Like if Missouri's 10-2, I promise you're going to be watching that Big 12 title game going, whoever the favorite is, please win. You're going to be watching the Big 10 title game cheering for Ohio State. You're going to be watching the ACC title game cheering for Florida State or Clemson or whoever's already in, because you want as many spots there as possible, because I think there's a pretty decent chance there's a power conference team that goes 10-2 and doesn't make it this year.
Earlier, you were talking about Missouri playing at Texas A&M, and you said, you lose that game, you still got stuff to play for. I wanted to add in, you do, but the games versus Alabama,
the margin for error is gone.
Those games have now increased massively in importance, and you may feel like your playoff is happening in week 7 or whenever they're playing Alabama and Oklahoma. I think it's 7 and 9.
And the perfect example, 2007, Missouri lost to Oklahoma. I think they were 5-1 or 6-1 after that game. And like initially that next day you woke up and go, man, feels like that kind of knocks everything off the table. Well, all of a sudden things started happening. Missouri won a couple games, and all of a sudden literally every game was the biggest game in school history, because if you kept winning, you had a chance to get back in there. And that's what it would be this year, right? If you lose at A&M, you can still get there, but you've taken away any real margin for error.
Yeah, especially because, I don't know, it could just be me, but when I think of if Missouri is going to lose 2 games, it'd be Alabama and Oklahoma in my mind. So if you you beat Texas A&M and you cruise to Alabama and you're 6-0 or whatever it is at that point in time, if you lose those 2 games, those are games people can see you losing or whatever. If one of those losses is to anyone else, it just feels that much worse. And let me ask you this. So let's say they go 10-2, but one of the wins versus Alabama. Do you think like now that's
better than yes?
Yeah.
It's almost better to lose to A&M and Oklahoma than it would be to lose to Alabama and Oklahoma because it's a difference-making win. The other thing about that Alabama and Oklahoma, those games are back-to-back, right? They are
split by a bye, though.
Yeah, October 26th and November 9th. It's basically games 8 and 9. So let's say you're 7-0, and then you lose those two, like you're going to fall pretty far by losing back-to-back and that's basically you're going to go 3 weeks without a win because of the bye week. And then all they've got after that is South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. Like they don't have a chance to come back and prove any. Like the more I look at it, they can't. I'm not sure Missouri makes the playoff if that's the 2 losses. Like they need one of the losses to be earlier in the year to give themselves the best shot.
Right. Yeah, you can easily use the storyline like early, it's early in the year. They lose to Texas A&M and they don't, they lose by 7, maybe by 10 or something like that on the road. You can say whatever you can make your arguments for
especially
that.
If it goes on to be an 8-4, 9-3 team that, 22nd in the country or something.
Someone asked me today earlier doing radio, they asked me like the stretch after Oklahoma, so South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas. They asked me, are those trap games for Missouri? And for one, if they lose, if they have their 2 losses on there, I mean, the season's is done.
If you're in the position Missouri expects to be in, like you can't have a damn trap game keep you out of the playoffs.
That's what I'm saying. You can't have any trap games because the schedule sets up so favorably. You only really got to worry about 2 to 3 games, if we're being honest, this year. The ones we've talked about.
I'm going to throw Auburn in there. I'm going to say 4.
You say 4, okay. But we're talking about 3 to 4 max games where that's it. That's your season. And so there can't be no Vanderbilt weirdness, Boston College, none of that. So in a way, it feels like besides those 4 games, everything is kind of a trap game, and you probably have to go 3-1 in those 4 games we're talking about.
Yeah, so let's boil Missouri's season down to this. You got Auburn, A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama. You minimum have to go 2-2 in those games.
Right? Just to stay alive and have your name brought up.
Yes. Yeah. To have a shot, you have to be minimum 2-2 in those games. If you lose any of the other 8 games on the schedule, I think you're done. Like you can't lose any of those 8. That's not true. If you lose any of the other 8, you have to win all 4 of those. Like if your loss is to somebody other than those 4 teams I just mentioned, you got to be 11-1 or you're not going to get in.
Absolutely.
Unless like South Carolina suddenly is so much better than we're giving them credit for, or Boston College is in the ACC title game or something, right? I mean, weird things happen. It's why they play the games.
Yeah. So 10-2 can only work. I feel like 10-2 can only work if Alabama and Oklahoma
and one other,
or what you were saying, Texas A&M. If Texas A&M turns out to be good, so if it's Alabama and someone else, and then you just got 2 random losses, you still may be able to get in there, but probably after that,
it's tough. Yeah. All right, so let's finish this up. Just and look again, guys. It is June 17th, 18th. I don't know, 6th, somewhere in there. Like we haven't studied all this. We don't know for sure. We're going overrated, underrated. So you start with whichever one of those you want. Pick an overrated or an underrated team. Then I'll pick mine, and then we'll do the other.
I'm going to ask you: is this team over or under, or am I trying to?
No, you pick the team you think. Okay, this team's either overrated or underrated by people sitting here on June 17th.
Probably Texas A&M. I think they're overrated because you made this. I said this on the radio earlier. You made that great comparison. We compared them to the Chargers.
Yeah.
Every offseason they have this hype, and everybody has kind of a bit of a fear of them being like, this is the year they go, 10-2, 11-1 or whatever. And they always trickle around from that 7-5 to 8-4 range in my mind. So I'm going to say Texas A&M overrated.
Okay, my overrated team, Tennessee Volunteers. look, Nico, and I'm not even going to pronounce. I'm never going to pronounce or type his last name. I'm just going to call him Nico. He may be a hell of a quarterback. I have a really, really hard time seeing a freshman quarterback come in, and I know like Johnny Manziel did it, right? It doesn't happen that much. So Tennessee, look, they're going to beat Chattanooga. They're probably going to beat NC State and Charlotte, but that's kind of a tricky. That game right there. If they go and NC State beats him, and it's Nico's second start, maybe third start, I don't know. That could kind of signal, hey, let's slow down the hype train just a little bit. Yeah, Kent State, they're going to win that. Josh Heupel's return to Norman, Oklahoma in OU's first ever SEC game.
Oh man, that's another game.
That's number 2. That's right behind Texas A&M of games I would like to go to. I could see OU getting super up for that one. They'll beat Arkansas, Florida, and Knoxville. Look, they'll probably win that, but weird stuff happens in Tennessee, Florida, Alabama. It's in Knoxville, but it's Alabama. Kentucky, they'll apparently Tennessee plays every game at home because Kentucky's in Knoxville too. They don't leave Tennessee for the entire month of October. Mississippi State, they'll win that 4 straight home games for Tennessee. Seriously, home against Florida, home against Alabama, bye, home against Kentucky, home against Mississippi State. That's insane. But then at Georgia, they're probably losing that. I mean, I can see 3 losses on Tennessee's schedule pretty easily. Maybe even 4. And so I think that makes them overrated. So now we flip to underrated. This is a dart throw by me. I'm going to go Auburn in year 2 under Hugh Freeze. I'm not saying they're going to win 10 games. I'm not saying they're going to make the SEC title game. I just think they'll be better than people expect them to be. I don't know what the over-under on them is. I would guess it's probably like 6.5 wins. I think in year 2 under Hugh Freeze, Auburn will be better than most people expect. I think they could be kind of that Texas A&M-ish where, look, they're not going to make the playoff, but they might be the reason somebody doesn't make it.
Auburn's a good pick. This is so silly to say. Alabama. People think it's over, and I'm thinking like, last time I checked, 5 stars and 4 stars are still going there. Last time I checked, we've got somebody who left, went to another program, and they came back and said, I'm sorry I did. Like, Alabama. I don't, and it's so funny saying that, obviously, because all the success they've had, but I just can't really
I think that's a good pick.
I can't understand people saying, I'm going from probably the GOAT to superstar, top 3 or 4 coach in the game, and that's just too much. They're gonna fall off. I can't.
Also, we might be getting fooled by reading Twitter right now. Like, I bet when the coaches poll and the preseason national poll come out, like, I bet Alabama's a top 6 team.
Absolutely. I can't. I feel like they may be, probably top 4.
They may be like 3. Yeah. So it's tough to be underrated if you're 3 or 4, right? But I see what you're saying. I agree.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. We're not going to dive into like game by game predictions, anything like that for Missouri yet. We got a little bit of time before we're going to do that, but just kind of wanted to really start the football talk for you guys. I mean, like I said, it's 4 weeks away. Off season's not quite over, but we're getting there. So want to do a little SEC football talk, start to get into looking at some of the big games, big teams, all that. And I don't know, anything that like you feel like you just didn't get off your chest?
I don't know if get off my chest. The only thing is, I just started the series kind of just looking at other SEC teams and what they brought back and what they lost and all that's good stuff. Well, more so about who they brought in and who they lost more than who they brought back. And because Vanderbilt was the first one posted, I mean, they're an SEC team. I'm going to show them some respect, Gabe. So real quick, they lost A.J. Swan, who was their QB1. They lost Ken Seals, who was their QB2, who played a lot last year because Swan was out. And then they lost their 3 top wide receivers in Humphreys, McGowan, and Shepard. And I think that's important because going into the game last year, I remember Drink vividly saying basically like, this is one of the top receiving rooms in the country. And I know we don't expect much from Vanderbilt, but that was what they had going for them, is they had 3 really talented wide receivers that caused problems for teams, and without them, it's not good. And so they've got, 1 or 2 people coming in that I'm just like, that's okay, but obviously Vanderbilt's they've got some work to do.
All right, so one more, just this would be kind of fun. Like, no analysis involved. Just if you could pick the SEC title game, like not who you think is going to be there, just like, hey man, this is the SEC title game I most want to see. What do you pick? Mine's easy. I'm picking Missouri Ole Miss. I think it would be a ball. It's 2 teams that, like, everybody's talking about them. There are realistic chances they get there. Kiffin and Drink would be funny at the press conferences. And like an SEC title game that involves Missouri and Ole Miss playing for a top 4 seed would be so fitting for this era of, I think they're the 2 coaches who have figured out the portal really well in this league. They've done NIL really well. And for those 2 teams to be playing in the Big 12 title game while Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, LSU, and Oklahoma are watched on TV, I think it'd be great. I think it'd be the best storyline this league could possibly produce this year.
I think I could put Missouri with 4 different teams, but for me, okay, I think it'd be Missouri and Texas from the standpoint of 2, former Big 12 foes going at it. Both of the game being in Atlanta just seems funny. It just seems like neither one of those teams should be playing in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. But I think it would just be like, I'm going to use something for my wrestling fans. It's like when WCW invades WWE, even though WWE really bought them out. Like, you've got these two Big 12 teams basically coming in and fighting for your league title in the conference that everybody is made up to be the best, and it is. But that would just be so fitting, especially with what you just said, with all those teams being at home and Georgia really being at home. They could be in the stadium to watch that game. So I think Missouri and Texas will be the game.
There you go. I like it. So, all right, Jarod, I appreciate it, man. I'm going to let you roll. I'm sure we've got more stuff coming. We're going to be looking at the other teams. So we're going to let Jarod get on with his evening, and want to thank you guys for watching. Before you leave, do a few things for us. Hit the like button, subscribe, comment, share us on social media, do all those things. And then also get in touch with our friend James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves. CarltonInsurance.net. Phone number is 314-961-4800. He's got a Facebook page. Look, if you try hard enough, you can find him on Twitter, LinkedIn, Google. I don't know. Maybe he's on Twitch. I don't know. Look anywhere you want. You find James Carlton. Get in touch with him. Get the best insurance rates you can. Talk a little bit of Mizzou football with him. He's always up for that. And thanks for watching, guys. We'll be back with you next week.